3rd and 4. Time. Catch! Brandon Powell! Touchdown Vikings! And they have the lead! How about Joshua Dobbs?
That was one of the most impressive drives you'll see all season. And it came from a guy who just arrived in Minnesota and had no reps with the team at all before the game. Josh Dobbs has been a great story all season. He has dealt with a ton of adversity during his career, and it's great to see him succeed. Let's take a look back from the beginning of the Josh Dobbs football story. Dobbs was born in Alpharetta, Georgia on January 26, 1995. He started playing football at the young age of 5 and eventually went on to play high school ball at Alpharetta High School. As a senior, he threw for 3,625 yards and 29 touchdowns. After his high school career, Dobbs was rated a 3-star recruit by Rivals and a 4-star recruit by Scout.com. He had a decent amount of offers to play in college from schools like USF, Boston College, Arkansas, Arizona State, and Tennessee, to name a few. Originally, Dobbs had committed to play for ASU, but in February 2013, he decided to change his commitment and play for the University of Tennessee. As a true freshman at Tennessee in 2013, Dobbs actually saw 4 starts because of an injury to starter Justin Worley. He racked up 695 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, he ran for 189 yards and a touchdown. His freshman season included a game where he threw for 240 yards in his first game as a starter, the most in a game for a Tennessee freshman since 2004. In his sophomore year, Justin Worley, who was in his senior season, won the starting job, but was once again injured halfway through the year, which caused Dobbs to be thrown into the action once again. His sophomore campaign saw him have his first breakout performance in a 45-42 overtime win over South Carolina, where Dobbs passed for 301 yards and 2 touchdowns, but also ran for 166 yards and 3 rushing scores. When his sophomore year was said and done, he finished with 1,206 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, adding 469 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. He was also named SEC Offensive Player of the Week twice that season. In his junior year, Dobbs was finally named the starter and had a solid year, throwing for 2,291 yards and 15 touchdowns with 5 picks, and ran for 671 yards and 12 touchdowns. Dobbs led Tennessee to a 9-4 record that year, which was their best record since the 2007 season, with key wins over number 19 Georgia, who they hadn't beaten since 2009, South Carolina, and in the Outback Bowl, they defeated number 12 Northwestern 45-6. In his senior year, he continued to lead the team and finished with his best stats yet: 2,946 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 12 picks through the air, and 831 yards, 13 touchdowns on the ground. Tennessee started that year off 5-0 with wins over number 19 Florida and number 25 Georgia. But after a close loss to Texas A&M, they started to fall apart but finished the season with a 9-4 record. The Volunteers were once again in the bowl game. This time, it was the Music City Bowl. This would be Dobbs' final game of his Tennessee career, and he did not disappoint. In a 38-28 victory over number 24 Nebraska, Dobbs had 291 yards through the air and a touchdown, along with 118 rushing yards and 3 scores. Dobbs finished his career at Tennessee with 7,138 yards, 53 touchdowns, and 29 interceptions, along with 2,160 yards and 34 touchdowns on the ground. One very unique thing about Dobbs is that while at Tennessee, he majored in aerospace engineering and was a 4.0 student while playing starting quarterback for an SEC school. Despite all the great stats Dobbs put up playing football, that may be the most impressive achievement of his time at Tennessee. Next up for Dobbs was the NFL Draft. He was selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 4th round, 135th overall. Dobbs didn't see much action in his rookie year, since Big Ben was still the starter for Pittsburgh. He finished with 43 yards passing and an interception in 5 games played. For the next few years, Dobbs bounced around practice squads for various teams. In 2019, he was with Jacksonville, where he participated in an internship for the Kennedy Space Center. In 2020, the Steelers brought him back. He was there for 2 years before signing a 1-year deal with the Browns to be the 3rd stringer, and after not appearing in any games, he was waived when Deshaun Watson returned from suspension. Up to this point, Dobbs has spent 5 years in the league and had not started a game, but he would finally get his opportunity later in 2022. After an injury to Ryan Tannehill and with Malik Willis underperforming, Dobbs was thrust into the starting role in Tennessee in Week 17 against the Dallas Cowboys. Despite losing the game, Dobbs played decent considering the circumstances. He passed for 232 yards and his first career passing touchdown. He then started in Week 18, needing a win to clinch the playoffs for Tennessee. Dobbs played well and they had a chance to win the game, but late in the fourth, he was sacked and fumbled the ball, leading to a Jacksonville touchdown. Now we arrive at this season. Dobbs was traded from Cleveland, who he signed in the offseason, to the Cardinals for a 7th round pick. He was named the starter since Kyler Murray was still recovering from an ACL tear. In 8 games this season for the Cardinals, Dobbs had 1,569 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 picks, to go along with 258 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Dobbs made the best of a tough situation in Arizona. Although they went 1-7, Dobbs showed flashes of his dual threat abilities. With Kyler expected to return in the coming weeks, Arizona traded Dobbs at the deadline to the Vikings to help replace starter Kirk Cousins, who suffered a season-ending injury. Jaren Hall was named the starter for Week 9, but was injured early in the game. Dobbs was thrown into the game despite barely knowing the plays and played the best NFL game of his career, throwing for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns and running for 66 yards and a touchdown, leading the Vikings down the field late in the fourth and passing to Brandon Powell for the game-winning score. An incredible feat considering the circumstances. Dobbs was awarded NFC Offensive Player of the Week for his efforts. He will start again this Sunday against the Saints with a chance to get his 3rd win of his NFL career. This season alone has earned Dobbs a high-level backup status and has revived his career. Don't be surprised if you see a team sign him to a backup QB contract similar to that of Jacoby Brissett. Thank you all for watching. If there's one thing to take away from the Josh Dobbs story, it's hard work pays off, even if you have to wait a long time to get your chance. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.